Hello everyone, my name is Dan Armstrong. I'm the Corporate Communications Specialist at Covenant Eyes, and this week with our Facebook Live segment we have Ian Henderson. Ian Henderson is the founder and CEO of the Naked Truth Project. You can go to nakedtruthproject.com and you can find all kinds of resources there and find out what he's up to and what his team is up to. He's a gifted evangelist and communicator and speaks at conferences throughout the UK and also internationally. The organization opens the eyes of people and frees lives from the damaging impact of porn. Also, there's an online support group, also called Click to Kick, that we'll talk about in a little bit, giving you the tools and support you need to find freedom from porn. Ian, welcome to the program today.
Great, really great to cross the Atlantic via the power of satellite technology and be with you guys.
You can't beat it, our friends from across the pond. Can you a little bit just summarize, Ian, the role pornography plays in the United Kingdom? I think oftentimes we have a very myopic look of pornography. We think United States, Hollywood, that type of media, and how pornography has infiltrated our society. What's it like in the United Kingdom?
Well, I'm not sure it's a whole example. Some surveys recently about our teenagers here in the UK. The government recently published a report where they said that 94% of the teenagers that they had spoken to said they'd seen pornography by the age of 14. We've got some friends working in Northern Ireland in schools every single day, and every time they work in a school, they'll take a little survey at the end of it. And so they've now got a huge sample of kind of young people over the years. But last year, they probably sampled about 5,000 pupils. And 29% of the 15-year-old boys that they met said they watched porn every day. Wow. And then that rose to 55% who were watching it at least once a week. So same with our teenagers, we see a huge problem here in the UK, but it's not just teens. You probably all heard of the website Pornhub that they do insights and stuff of their traffic and that sort of thing. The UK is their second biggest source of traffic across the world, and the average age of people from the UK that visit that website is around 35 years old. So it isn't just those kind of curious teenage boys looking for something. It is our kind of millennials here in the UK that are involved. And actually, interestingly, in those stats as well, we're seeing an increase in female visitors. I mean, I've read stats that say something as much as 1 in 3 visitors to porn sites are female globally, but for the UK, according to that website, 24% of the UK visitors that they had were female. So we're seeing it amongst young men and older men. We're seeing it amongst females as well. I guess one of the big differences, I know Dan, you and I were talking previously about a survey that mentioned that 7% of churches said they had some sort of program to help people with porn addiction or dependency or something like that. To be honest, I started Naked Truth about 5 years ago. I would have struggled to find one single church in the UK that had a program that was focused on pornography. There would be maybe some recovery things like Celebrate Recovery or Freedom in Christ, those kind of programs. But something that was specifically aimed at supporting porn use, not a thing. And 5 years later, hopefully we've got a few more churches that are able to offer that support, but it's still a very small percentage. Maybe it's 1-2%. I don't have the actual data on that, or data, as you would say, but it is a very small percentage in comparison to your 7%, which I'm sure you're wishing was a much larger number anyway.
Sure, almost every person that we surveyed in the church said that pornography is a problem in society and that it's most likely a problem in their church, but yet only 7% only address that. And most people say that when they used to have a program, they don't anymore because of lack of interest. So we're trying to generate more of an openness for those who are struggling and for those who would feel more comfortable and safe to share their struggle. One thing I wanted to talk about, and I think this is something where the UK is ahead of the United States in, and that is legislatively. when it comes to websites and someone getting on a website, are there more restrictions? Are there more hoops someone would have to jump through to get to that kind of content?
Well, we're recently seeing some of those changes, and one of the things that we've had the privilege to kind of help shape and be involved in is some debate that has been happening in Parliament here. We've partnered with other organisations who've been heavily involved as well in shaping some new legislation. Really been two bills that Parliament have been looking at over the last couple of years. One is called the Digital Economy Bill, and one is the Online Act. And what we're seeing is, I think, in our country at least, a desire to address the issue of young people accessing porn almost by accident. I think that's been a concern, and so that's particularly that Digital Economy Bill. That's something it's trying to address by adding a better age verification kind of regulation. And it's been passed, but it's still to kind of be seen in practice, I suppose. It's quite recent law. But the idea is to try and put maybe, for example, the websites to hold credit card details or something, just so that there's proof of age. Because as many of the viewers will know, at the moment, most websites, you're just ticking a box that says, yes, I am over 18, honest governor. So that's some of the law changes that we've seen in the last 12 or so months. And that's been a challenge, really, even addressing that. And there's been a lot of debate about what is defined as pornography or extreme pornography. And there's been a lot of debate around that. But we are starting to see some progress, which is really good and really encouraging.
I know Canada is fighting that same battle because they have a similar thing where it's, are you over 18, click yes or no, and a 2 or 3 year old could click yes. And so they're trying to make it so that, like you said, either put a credit card in or make it more difficult to be able to access that kind of content. Can you give us a brief overview of, because it seems like you're involved in so many things. You're involved in ministry on the most basic form of helping those not only struggling with pornography, but just helping those struggling with life, regardless of socioeconomic issues. So can you kind of give us a brief overview of all the things that you currently do?
Yeah, of course. I'll try my best to keep it brief as well, Dan. I mean, as you mentioned before, the kind of heartbeat of Naked Truth is to open eyes and free lives from the damaging impact of pornography. And so we kind of split our activity into those two areas. And open eyes for us means two main things. One is awareness, and then the other is taking that awareness further and education. So I think for awareness, what we're trying to do is recognise that from the parliamentary peer to the pub pundit, who sits with his friends in his local, we want to shape the conversation around pornography and help people begin to think about whether porn is harmful or not. And so we do a lot of work with artists and creatives to try and sort of just get people talking about it. If people are interested in some of that stuff, we have a website called howgoodisporn.com, which is a lot of our kind of creative work. It sort of lives there. And so we're recognizing that non-Christians in particular are maybe, struggling to see what the problem is with porn. And so our awareness work is addressing some of that stuff. And then, as I say, we take that further to trying to educate as well. And so we have a team here in Manchester where the office is, but also across the UK we have associates who are delivering lessons in high schools, which is focusing on what is a damaging impact of porn and just helping young people think about that maybe for the first time. But also we're trying to educate parents, and so we'll have parent workshops that we'll deliver around the country as well, trying to help them navigate parenting in this new digital age. And then also we're trying to train and educate and equip church leaders. And so last year we had events with probably around 700 church leaders attending over the year, and we're trying to put tools in their hands so that they can begin to tackle this issue, with their congregation. So that's all open eyes. And then Free Lives is, as it sounds really, that's our work that is trying to support those that struggle with porn themselves. both men and women who might identify that they've got a dependency or a compulsive issue with porn that they want to see changed. And so Click to Kick that you mentioned before is our main way that we do that, which are online groups that people can join once a week, wherever they are, and it's anonymous, it's accessible, it's affordable, and we're really seeing a massive impact there. Individuals who've maybe had decades of feeling trapped, finding freedom, which is brilliant. But also we have Wholehearted, which is our partner program for spouses and partners of porn users. And again, we're just trying to offer recovery and support and help to those people as well, because they're often just as much needing healing as the people who are struggling, as you'll know. So that's it in a nutshell. There's other things that we're doing as well, but they're the main things, Dan. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest obstacles that you're seeing with the church addressing this issue? Do you see it more of a pastor's hesitation to talk about this? Is there a fear that it may scare people away or maybe too uncomfortable? What is the difficulty, do you think? Because you've been able to talk to so many of these pastors and get some of their feedback. Yeah. What are the things that they're dealing with?
I think you're right. I think there's still a sense of taboo about it as an issue. I think one of the things that I often say is that it feels like it's taboo to talk about porn inside the church, and it's taboo to suggest there might be a negative impact to pornography outside the church. And both of those are difficult things to talk about. And so I think there are lots of church leaders that still feel that pressure of mentioning the P word from the pulpit. And that is shifting and that is changing, but I think that is a challenge. And then even those that do talk about it, I think it just takes so much courage, doesn't it, for an individual to go and say to somebody, I just need some help with this. I'm struggling, and one of the reasons why a lot of our support happens online is because we know that first step is often easier made if it can be completely anonymous. And so the great thing, the thing about our phones is they've created a bit of a problem when it comes to pornography, because they've created accessibility and anonymity, which means that porn is thriving away before. But actually that same technology can have people too. And people can have access to a group that maybe doesn't exist in their local church. Or have anonymity that they might need initially. I mean, obviously, you hope that people will begin to talk to people they know in their small groups or their church leaders. But initially, that first scary step, okay, it's not anyone I'm going to have to see on Sunday. That can really help people. And so for churches to be able to signpost that has been, I think, really significant for church leaders, because I think they've said to us, the difficulty has been, even when we talk about this, we recognise people are probably scared to talk to us. We might be talking about it from the front, but will they come to us? That's another big step to be made. So I imagine that's pretty much the same where people are. I mean, I know we've got a reputation for being, Brits being a little bit prudish and a little bit, but I imagine you probably struggle just as much to talk about some of this stuff as we do. And so they are definitely hurdles. I think also for church leaders, and this is one of the things that, again, we're trying to address as we educate and equip leaders, is I think there's a sense of, if I start talking about porn from the front or even in a small group context or whatever, am I opening a can of worms pastorally that I don't feel equipped to actually deal with? And I think as leaders have become more informed about pornography, as understanding that it isn't just a bit of a habit that needs addressing, as they begin to understand some of the kind of neurological issues or maybe some of the psychological issues that are attached, and they start to see it maybe alongside issues like alcoholism or deeper rooted problems, they're recognizing, oh my goodness, I'm not equipped for that. If I just said read your Bible a bit more, that would be easier. I feel equipped for that. But if this is a deeper thing, and there is maybe the need for maybe more sort of professional help or at least trained help, I think a lot of leaders feel, oh my goodness, I don't even want to start that. I don't want to open that up. So again, I think that's a hurdle for lots of leaders too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Everything you've said are things that we've seen as well. I think a lot of people, like we as parents or pastors, would say, "Well, I don't want to bring this up because then it would maybe excite curiosity out of our children or out of those in the pews, and not benefit those that are actually struggling," which it would do.
Yeah.
Nowhere else do we say, "Let's not talk about drugs. Let's not talk about other dangerous things." We talk about those a lot because we want to keep people from them and the devastating effects of those. But for some reason with pornography, it may be a lot of people have had a bad experience or have struggled themselves and think if they start opening that can of worms, like you mentioned, people may find out that there was something in their past and may feel like people will think less of them. And for those currently struggling, there's that big fear of, I may lose my job, I may lose my marriage and my family. So there's a lot at stake when we talk about these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in particular, addressing the issue to women is even more scary and rare for churches. And you know, the women who we're supporting, you know, the number of stories we hear of just saying, okay, if it did get talked about, it was at the men's curry night, or it was, you know, at the men's event. And so there was almost an increased sense of, by not being inclusive even in the language, you know, a church leader getting up and saying, okay, this is something for the guys. If you're a girl who's struggling, if you're a female who's struggling, then the kind of sense that, oh, there's really something wrong with me then just increases even more, and you're already battling issues of shame and things. And so, yeah, I think that's been something else we've identified as we've talked to church leaders.
What do you think is the next big thing? And we've seen a lot, whether it's sexting, sending illicit text messages. There's virtual reality. There's the advent of sex dolls, sex robots now. There's so many things out there now. What specifically have you seen that's kind of come along that is kind of the next big thing or the next threat that pornography is able to get even further into our society?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, really. I mean, I think you're right. Statistically, you'll see things like virtual reality kind of going up on kind of like what people are searching for on porn sites and things like that. So I think there is an increased interest in that. I think interestingly, I wonder if there's a combination of an increased sense of normalization alongside an increased sense of escapism. And so what I mean by that is I think more and more, I think we're seeing that porn is just, the industry is promoting porn as very normal. And again, you know, I think that's a huge threat to relationships as a whole, not just for people in their walk and their faith walk, but to non-Christians. You know, I think there's a huge issue there of, if this is seen as normal, that's going to impact people in lots of different ways. But also, you know, one of the big increases in what people are searching for is sort of the Japanese animation pornography. And I think that's interesting that almost feels like another step away from reality. I mean, porn in and of itself obviously is not realistic, and it presents a fake world, and that's part of the problem, but that's part of what people are looking for. But and I think that with the animation, there is almost a sense of, okay, this just comes completely unrealistic, which I think might, interestingly, amongst the church becomes an issue, because I think lots of Christians would sort of say, morally, they're kind of dealing with the fact that this is a person, and I'm not sure how I feel about that, and I don't know how this got made, and I don't know whether this person is being exploited or not. And that's one of the things that can actually help, you know, someone say, I'm not gonna watch this, you know, as they're trying to find all the reasons they can in that battle. You know, we've certainly sat with different Christians over the years who've sort of said, but the animation stuff, that doesn't have the same weight to it, sort of morally, almost, because they're just drawings, and obviously there are other reasons why it's unhelpful. And but I think that is increasing. If you look at what the porn industry is kind of delivering, it's almost like another step away from reality, which I don't know, but I think that suggests maybe we get closer and closer to escaping our real lives and trying to live a life that's not real. And porn is offering that in lots of different ways.
We've been talking with Ian Henderson. He's the founder and CEO of Naked Truth Project. You can visit it at nakedtruthproject.com, and also howgoodisporn.com. We've been able to create some interesting websites to get people talking about this issue and battling pornography in the UK and really around the world. How can we help you, Ian, and how can we support you?
Well, I mean, I think we are a small organisation that are kind of just getting started. I think we're the only organisation in the UK, the only charity in the UK that is addressing the issue of pornography fully, from awareness all the way through to recovery. We've got some great friends who we partner with who might focus on one element of that, but I think we're the only charity in the UK doing it. We live in a country that 50% of the UK say they're not Christians, and 42% of that 50 say they have no religion at all. So we kind of, we live in a country that on the whole doesn't see a problem with porn. And within the church, I think we're seeing just a lot of hidden problems. So the way that you guys can help us is, I guess, to just try and cheer us on. I mean, share the love on sort of social media and stuff. I mean, I know people always say that, but in terms of if you like something, if you comment on something that we post, actually that doesn't make us feel good, but it does. But it also pushes that up into other people's news feeds. People are more likely to see that. So we do quite a lot on Instagram. We do quite a lot on Facebook that just maybe creates awareness around the issue. So if you follow us and share and comment, that's going to mean more people are going to start to understand this issue and think about it. That'd be a great way. And please just pray for us, pray for wisdom for us. Please pray for finances as well. That's a big issue for us. At the moment, we're in the process of creating a recovery app that we're going to pitch at non-Christians that will give them help, but also will give them opportunity to maybe discover the one who we can help, but Jesus can heal. So we really want this app to be able to do both those things. We need probably another £20,000 to get that over the line. So pray for that. That will be an amazing thing over these next few weeks. People could pray for that for us. And if you can be an answer to your own prayers, then great. If you can cheer us on in any way, we'd love that. But come and have a look at what we're doing, and if you can be talking about it, that's gonna be great.
And we have links to all those websites and the ways you can take advantage of resources and to be able to help out in the comment section of this video here. Ian, thank you so much for your time today, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks, great.